Hey everyone, my name is Mike Blight. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm the Senior Market Research and Insights Manager at Spot Social. I recently, about a week ago, created a video about my transition from higher ed academia, from a full-time tenure track position to tech. And I've received a lot of questions, DMs, and other sort of communications with follow-up questions. So maybe this will be a recurring series, right? Where I just answer kind of scattershot questions all across the board. So I have 5 items here that I'll timestamp, but I thought these were good items that could be of value for people. And so we're just going to hop into it. So question 1 is networking. How do I begin to network as an academic? And my answer is not great, for the record. I think LinkedIn is a fine resource for making that transition. I think that there are a number of specific job hunting pages that you can subscribe to. There are people who are industry leaders who share a lot of open job opportunities. And so I would try to find as many of those as possible. Don't underestimate the use of hashtags within the search bar, because you can see, you do like hashtag UX research and start scrolling through accounts of people who post about that. You might be surprised as to how prominent those conversations are of people looking to help spread the word for a new job opportunity that exists. And also just on a business level, thinking about people whose job as a recruiter is to recruit people for those UX roles. So certainly they're going to be posting about it. So that's my networking thing, is use Twitter, I suppose, if you're familiar with the platform or have presence on there. But just reach out, cold messaging people. Hey, I see that you are a senior UX researcher at insert company. I'm looking to make the jump into UX research. I would love to schedule some time to chat, X, Y, and Z. Maybe they'll accept, maybe they won't, but it's worth the effort. And you can use a pretty simple copy paste to make that happen too. Maybe sprinkle in some details about what's unique to them. I see you're a senior UX researcher at Microsoft, right? So that's networking. Question 2, what is the biggest learning curve? There's a lot. And I think that's part of the process that a lot of academics maybe aren't as comfortable talking about, but there's a lot of things you just don't know. You probably don't know industry lingo and terminology, right? You might not understand how the hierarchy works within an organization, how different teams partner together to produce a thing. So if you're a product-driven company and you are a UX researcher on, let's say, design, you're going to have to learn a lot about product design, how the product design is communicated through product marketing to the end users. You're going to have to learn a lot about industry terms. And so the linguistic component of just how things are referenced and how things are talked about is certainly different company to company, in addition to job titles. And I think that's another thing that is very daunting and super frustrating, is that you'll probably be looking to find a UX writer role at one company, and that might not exist at all at another company, or it might be called something different somewhere else. So I would just say start literally a notepad of all the different names and titles and naming conventions. Using places like Glassdoor is also very helpful for that. Things I wish I knew at the beginning of my transition to industry. I think the learning curve is a big one, learning how to network. So that's sort of point A and point B here. But I also think just the length of time it takes, the realization that your current portfolio of artifacts, whether they be articles or papers or things like that, are cool and they're neat. And I think I touched on this a little bit in the last video, but also that you need to really make sure that you have actual representation of the thing that you can do, right? What is the actual output? How do you communicate that output? I think a lot of people look at usability studies and they might be qualitative researchers and say, well, I've done lots of interviews and I'm a very skilled interviewer and I have excellent qualitative skills that I've honed over the years. And here's some artifacts in terms of a published research article in computers and human behavior. And that's really cool. But unless you have a usability study or an industry focus group that you conducted, and here is the PDF of the output that you created as a result of that, I think it's hard for people in the industry to see the direct one-to-one link. you are operating in a world where you very intuitively understand what it means to conduct academic UX equivalent qualitative research, maybe even quantitative research. But again, linguistically, it's different. The outputs are different. The timetable is very different. And so if you're looking to generate and create an artifact, I would do it within a very strict parameter of time. We're not looking at 6 to 9 months to produce a project. We might be looking at 2 to potentially 3 weeks to go from inception of an idea to data collection to analysis to presenting that to a group of stakeholders within the organization. So I would be very cognizant of that. And I would also include that language within whatever artifact you produce to very clearly articulate the actual timetable. Give yourself a little bit of credentials to say, hey, I understand there are quick turnarounds. Here's from point A to B to C. Question 4 is methods I currently use. Well, I'm a mixed methods researcher that works at a marketing team. My role is very unique. I'm the senior market research and insights manager. So I do a lot of survey-based research that's then used within our data reports. We have a quarterly data report series that we just launched. I own that process. We have this large annual flagship report that we produce called the Index. I own the data analysis and distribution part of that within our teams. The actual question generation, things like that, is a very collaborative effort. A lot of the process is just a collaborative effort in general. I definitely don't want to take too much credit because there are so many brilliant people that work on all these projects. I just happen to have the tools, the methods to be able to analyze the research, right? So, I mean, on a very surface level, we're talking about collecting, designing a survey instrument, sending it out, analyzing the data as it comes through, using our studio to actually do more like parametric statistics and analysis. Yeah, I'm not doing as many. I'm running the tests, right? I'm doing regressions and I'm thinking about the modeling of it, but I'm also, more than anything else, if we're talking about making generational comparisons or making platform to platform comparisons, there's a lot of ANOVAs and things like that. So if you have competencies in being able to do that and being able to articulate that, it's pretty good. And then the last question is foot in the door at a tech company. I've said this interpersonally to a bunch of people, but I would not get hung up on the title of a position. I know, and let me just really quickly. What's really fascinating to me is that in academia, in a tenure track job, in most cases, there's 3 potential titles, right? There's assistant, associate, and full professor. And you spend literal decades trying to go from one to the other to the other. But when people are looking at industry jobs, they see a senior title and then they see a junior role. So it could be like UX research associate. And like, I'm not going to be an associate. Like I am an assistant professor. I've been doing this research for decades. But what you quickly realize is that the seniority of the role, the title associated with that, very much scales with the amount of projects that you manage, that you run. So you might be the actual person who's doing the tactical ground level analysis, reporting, but you're being managed by somebody else. That management component, the people management, is very much unique to a role. And so you might not have any people management skills. You might have never done this in industry. So the fixation with like, I'm not going to accept an associate role. I will bet you right now, whoever's watching, that if you are looking at your current salary for a 9-month contract, let's assume that you work in the traditional academic school year, versus an associate role, that associate role, despite it not having a cool title, is going to pay more, give you better benefits, give you better healthcare, give you paid time off, more than your current role. So I would say put your ego to the side. There are a lot of people who've been doing this a lot longer than you have in industry with mega portfolios that have non-senior titles. So leave that ego at the door. There's a lot of really awesome, talented people who are doing this type of work, who don't have a PhD, might not even have a master's, and they are, quite frankly, better than you at the thing that you are convinced that you're better than them at, because of the weird conflation and ego of a PhD. So those are my 5 quick hitters. Feel free to add, comment, submit, DM. Happy to do as many of these as possible. People seem to like them. So let me know. See ya.